the signature of whoever sent me the email. Jeff did. So you guys reps for Tyrol then, I assume.
All right, we're back.
Here we are. We're on.
We're going to start the show tonight with a point from a tournament not too long ago. It was one of our guests a couple of weeks ago, so let's roll this, and then we can talk about it.
And here we are. We're live. Rodney from Pickleball Rocks. Rocket Rodney. We're going to talk about why he's Rocket Rodney.
All right.
Jeff is up. Here we go.
All right, this is one of our guests from a couple of weeks ago. If you don't know her, it's Annalee Waters.
Very well known.
And Catherine Parento.
I think she started at 12 and now she's 14. Incredible, her skills. Playing with all the adults. Jeff, can you see it?
Yes. Oh,
because we cannot. I thought one of us would tell him, Rodney.
All right, my bad. Could you hear it?
Not really.
Okay. Well, I apologize. I guess I screwed that up. But essentially what happened was Annalee won her first PPA gold medal. She beat Catherine Parento, and it was 5 sets. She won the first one. She lost the next 2. She had to come back and win the final 4th and 5th set.
Right, because of the bracket she was in, right?
So let's talk about that. She's 14 years old. Will she be the new female face of pickleball in years to come?
Who can tell? Coach? Who knows? If she stays healthy, sure she could.
And singles.
She loves soccer. She loves soccer too. Who knows what she's going to do? She could do anything she wants. She's in a great place.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this isn't her favorite sport, according to her. So It's hard telling how long she'll be around.
Correct.
But certainly enjoy her while you can, that's for sure, because she is something to watch.
She sure is. And Coach,
what a wonderful, mature 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
She's been brought up well. What do you think about 5 sets, Coach?
I don't think I could last 5 sets. You're asking me. I think it's a lot for anybody. You know, it depends on the 2 people playing. It depends on the match itself. But that's a long match. And I don't know that that's going to happen a lot. I think possibly it's just the way that they run their tournament. I don't know if it's going to stay like that.
And if you think about it, they do Championship Sunday. So if somebody played, 5 sets in singles, and then a little later they had to play, women's or mixed or men's or whatever it was.
Right.
I mean, that's a tough day.
It's too long.
Agreed. Well, let's get right into it. Let's welcome our guest tonight. We wanted to show you that video, and I completely botched it, so I apologize. So tonight we have the CEO of Pickleball Rocks, Mr. Rodney Grubbs. First of all, you've got Rocket up there. Tell us what is Rocket?
Well, thanks to an 8th grade math teacher decades ago, hung that nickname on me. Okay, so an 8th grade math teacher one day called me Rocket Rodney, and that nickname just hung with me all through school. And then after I got out of high school, then it went away. I never used it again. But then when I started playing pickleball 13 years ago, and we can talk a little bit more about when I started, but that nickname came back. I started using that online just as in my signature when I first started in pickleball, and it caught on very, very quickly. So people started calling me Rocket. And as I got out and started playing tournaments, it was probably a good 2 years of being out there on the road playing tournaments before anybody even knew my real name then. Everybody in the pickleball world, when I came into pickleball, knew me as Rocket. And so it just kind of hung with me. But, thanks to that 8th grade math teacher, Mr. Brashear,
You remember who it is. That's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he'll answer to that. If you call across the court, say Rocket, he'll turn right around.
Yeah, that's very true.
So let's back up a minute, Rodney, and let's talk about
we're forgetting our favorite question.
Yeah, no, exactly. But you've been playing the game for over a decade. I mean, that probably puts you in an elite crowd in itself. But Coach Mike's favorite question: how did pickleball find you, and how many years have you actually been playing this game?
Well, my USAPA membership number is 2778.
Yeah, I'll tell you right there.
So that tells you I've been around a while. 13 years ago, I live in a little country town of Brookville, Indiana. Just to geographically tell you where that is, it's about 35 miles northwest of Cincinnati, Ohio. A little town of 2,500 people, little country town. Mm-hmm. And 13 years ago, two retired couples found pickleball down in Florida one winter, and they brought a portable net back with them to Brookville, and they were bound and determined to get pickleball started back here in Brookville. 13 years ago, there was no pickleball back in this part of the country. Okay, the Midwest was very barren when it comes to the sport of pickleball. Middletown, Ohio had a little bit, and Terre Haute, Indiana had a little bit. I think Terre Haute had 6 courts at that time. But other than that, you couldn't find any pickleball in Cincinnati. You couldn't find any pickleball in Dayton or Indianapolis. And so anyhow, these two retired couples, man, they were like a dog on a bone as far as trying to get people in our little country town started. And so they actually built 2 really nice outdoor courts in our little country town 13 years ago. And as soon as they got those 2 nice courts built, they approached me and said, Rodney, you need to try pickleball. And of course, 13 years ago, Rodney's like, I've never heard of it. Okay, what is pickleball? I was a local high school tennis coach at the time. Okay, and so they came to me and asked me to try it. When you live in a little country town, everybody knows everybody, everybody's friends. And so, of course, I went and tried it. And as soon as I picked up the paddle, it was like love at first sight. I fell in love with it instantly and have been hooked ever since. And so, that was my start with the game. What happened along with that, this will probably cover maybe some of the questions that you have and maybe some of the viewers might have. They always ask, well, how did Pickleball Rocks come about? Mm-hmm. Pickleball Rocks came about sheerly as an accident. Okay, those 2 retired couples, when they hooked me and got me playing, their instructions were okay, you know everybody in town, so it's your job now to get people playing. We built the courts, we did the hard part, you get them playing. And so I started asking a few people around Brookville to come and try pickleball, and they had the same question that I did. What is pickleball? And so one day I decided to create a T-shirt just to get the conversation started in Brookville, Indiana. And that T-shirt said on it, Pickleball Rocks, ask me how. And I did that by going to the dollar store and buying a cotton T-shirt and ironing on those letters myself, okay? And so that shirt literally was created to get the conversation started about the sport of pickleball, because 13 years ago, everybody asked that same question, what is pickleball? Mm-hmm. About 3 months after I created that first shirt, I finally decided to go try my first tournament. I found that Terre Haute, Indiana had a tournament over there in the summertime, and so I went and I played in that tournament, and I wore my only pickleball shirt that I had, that little cotton shirt that I had ironed those words on. And at that tournament, people started coming up to me like, we're trying to get pickleball started in our little town. Where can I get one of those shirts? And I'm like, I guess I'll iron one for you, okay? And so I ironed some shirts, and I gave some shirts away early on to people that wanted to get pickleball started. And so that's how I got started with the philosophy of just helping pickleball grow. Anywhere I could go, I would give those shirts away to anybody that wanted to get the sport started in their town. But eventually, enough people started asking for that shirt that the little light bulb came on that said, maybe I should get a few of these printed up professionally and sell a few and pay for my entry fees into these little tournaments that I'm going to. And so that's how Pickleball Rocks came about then, okay? And it just took off from there. As soon as I started selling them out of my trunk, people at tournaments just started asking for them. Right. And the rest, as they say, is history. And today, here we are 13 years later, and Pickleball Rocks now has morphed into the largest, best-known pickleball apparel brand in the country by far. So,
tell us a little bit about the UP and the Let's Roll pickleball.
UP stands for Unstoppable Pickleball. So if you see that big UP on a shirt any place, the mantra behind that is that pickleball is unstoppable at this point in time. Okay,
I agree.
It's rolling through every town, and community across the country right now and around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But those two sub-brands, they are sub-brands of Pickleball Rocks, our clothing company, or our Pickleball Rocks brand. That came about during the pandemic last year.
Okay.
Last year, of course, we would have had Pickleball Rocks, a booth or a table or some form of the Pickleball Rocks traveling store at close to 200 tournaments last year.
It's a lot of work.
So we lost 200 tournaments last year personally that we would have had Pickleball Rocks there. And so being locked at home in my office for all those months, it was like, okay, what are we going to do while we're down? We're just not going to sit around and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally had the domain name Unstoppable Pickleball. I've had it for years. Never knew what I would use it for. I just kind of felt like I would use it someday. And so yeah, one day I sat down and just started trying to come up with some designs around that particular mantra, Unstoppable, and ended up with coming up with 41 different designs, and have now rolled those out as one of our new apparel lines. Let's Roll Pickleball. Very cool story there. This Let's Roll Pickleball is another sub-brand that we created during the pandemic. But the way that came about, some of you people will know this gentleman, and maybe some of you out there won't know him. But I'm sitting on Facebook one night, and I see a post from a gentleman by the name of Michael O'Leary.
Yeah.
Michael O'Leary, very well known down in the Florida area, and actually in a lot of parts of the country, really good wheelchair player.
Right.
And a lot of people on here might not know Michael's story, but Michael was a really good 4.0 standing player a few years back, and one day accidentally fell, hit his head, and triggered. And I can't pronounce the name of the disease that put him in that wheelchair, but he's been in that wheelchair now for I'm going to say 5 or 6 years, and I'll let him correct that online sometime. But anyhow, I'm sitting online, and I see Michael O'Leary make a Facebook post. And his Facebook post said, "Hey, so happy," he said, "we just got to donate 2 sports wheelchairs to 2 para pickleball players so they can now play pickleball." And as soon as I saw that post, I had the domain name, Let's Roll Pickleball.com, and I've had that for years as well. I knew it was sitting out there in our stable. I knew we would use it sometime, and as soon as I saw that post of his, I pulled out Let's Roll Pickleball.com, created a design on a T-shirt that just said Let's Roll, and I sent a copy of that to Michael O'Leary. I said, "Michael," I said, "just curious, what do you think of this new T-shirt design I'm thinking about?" And he came back instantly. He said, "I love that." He said, "I would wear that." And he said, "I know people just like me that would love to wear that shirt." And so I told him, I said, "Well, I'll tell you what we'll do then. We'll create a small line of clothing. We'll do some hats. We'll do some shirts. We'll put that out there in our main website." And I said, "Every time we sell one, we will donate a portion of that sale to you personally so you can go buy more sports wheelchairs." And so we rolled that design line out there 3 or 4 months ago now. And people across the country have really embraced that cause. Okay, because it's going to a wonderful cause, because Michael's passion in life right now is not only to play pickleball, but it's to get more para pickleball players playing.
Right.
Get them into sports wheelchairs so they can play. And so anyhow, we're helping him do that as well.
So Rodney, those are great stories, and thank you for that. And for stepping up like that, that's amazing. Obviously, you've talked about apparel, but it looks like Pickleball Rocks is a lot more than just apparel. Tell us the other silos that you have under your Pickleball Rocks umbrella.
Well, it kind of goes back to the very beginning when I said, I'm giving away T-shirts out here just to help grow pickleball. And so even before my 2 sons came into the business, they came in about 9 or 10 years ago, I always just had this passion to grow the sport. I just enjoy talking to people about pickleball and putting a paddle in their hand and helping the community leaders try to figure out, how to get courts in their communities. And so I started developing some programs along the way to kind of help the sport grow. And anybody that ever buys from us online has seen these. But this is a pamphlet that goes out with every order. This basically tells the story on Pickleball Rocks and how we got started, but on the back of the pamphlet and inside are the different programs that we have developed over the years. And they're all designed really to help in some way, shape, or form grow the sport.
Correct.
And so we've got pickleballchampionsclub.com. Pickleballchampionsclub.com, that's a program that helps pickleball clubs, small pickleball clubs that are trying to grow it in their community. It helps them with different tips and how to get started right and how to maybe find a little funding, how to do little fundraisers and things like that, how to get the right community leaders involved. It's just a kind of a helpful website for helping the clubs, grow in their communities. We have one called pickleballmile.com. Pickleballmileclub.com is for people it was to encourage people to play pickleball. It is a site where people can actually download a form and track how many times they play pickleball every week, okay? And for every 4 games of pickleball that they play, we credit them with what we call a pickleball mile. You just did a pickleball mile, and so our mantra in that club is, did you do your pickleball mile today? Which means, did you play 4 games of pickleball? Well, as they track those, then they can send those tracking forms into the head of our Pickleball Mile Club. Our director there is Rodney Grubbs, and she gets those, and when they reach certain levels, they get different little gifts sent to them. It's just to encourage them to exercise and get out and play day after day after day, okay? It really is just to get people exercising and benefiting from the health benefits of pickleball. Pickleballpaddlefoundation.com. Pickleball Paddle Foundation is just a website that we put out there a number of years ago that distributes. Some people will like this and some won't, but it's wooden paddles. We developed a wooden paddle that weighs 9.5 ounces, so it's very, very manageable for people, and we sell hundreds and hundreds of those to YMCAs and parks departments and schools. Schools order through us all the time because they just want an unbreakable paddle and something to just get people playing the game. And so, yeah, we have not only really good prices on the wooden paddles there, but we also do a lot of giving of wooden paddles. We donate tons of wooden paddles to, again, different organizations around the country to help them get started. And then the last one on there, Pickleball Clubwear, for pickleballclubwear.com. That's just a site where we help the different clubs with custom club shirts. We do a lot of club shirts for clubs around the country. Mm-hmm. They'll send in their logo, or they'll have one of our graphic designers, design a logo for them, and we put them into some nice looking club wear. So that one's out there. So that's our main programs. We don't have time tonight, but our literal business plan and marketing plan is over 80 pages long.
Wow.
It has all the different websites that we have developed. When we started years ago, we developed a website. Most people don't know that we own this website called pickleballrules.com.
Right.
That's ours. And it's just a place where people can go and just get a simple explanation of the rules of pickleball. So Pickleball Rules is ours. A website, whatispickleball.com, is ours. Gets a lot of traffic, okay, because people go out to Google and ask, what is pickleball? So, that's just one of ours. And again, it just guides them to where they can learn more about pickleball and get themselves started. So we have a lot of websites like that, a lot of social media platforms that we work on out there to help the sport. So that, in a nutshell, is Pickleball Rocks. And, oh, by the way, we sell apparel too. So
by the way.
Well, when you're talking about that, you brought up something interesting about your kids. Tell us what it's like to work with your kids.
Sometimes it's a pain in the neck.
You said it out loud.
But, yeah, I said that out loud. You guys captured that. It's just a true blessing. Okay, I had a 20-year corporate career with AT&T and took a very early retirement package from them back in 2003. Started a marketing consulting company of my own. But when I started that marketing consulting company, I always had a dream my dream was always, could I come up with some type of business later in life that I could be in business with my kids, my 2 boys.
Very nice.
We've just been such a close family all the years that we've had those boys around. They're in their mid-30s now. But, we grew up a tennis family, and very, very close. And so when the time came that I saw pickleball, this is about 10 years ago now. Remember, I've been around for 13 years, but about 10 years ago is when you really started to recognize there was a tsunami coming. You could see pickleball getting into all the states very, very quickly. You could almost just see it moving across the country. And when I saw that happening, that's when I really got serious about Pickleball Rocks. Up to that point in time, I was still it was a hobby for me. It was a fun hobby, and it was a kind of a profitable hobby. But 10 years ago, I sat down with my 2 sons and their wives at dinner one night. My wife and I took them to dinner and just planted the seed with them. And the seed that night was, boys, I know you've got your careers going, now. You both seem to be really happy with your careers. If you've ever thought about having a business of your own, you see what, and they were pickleball players by that time, all right? So they knew what Dad was doing, and they both were 5-0 pickleball players. So they were.
Rodney's sons are very good athletes, by the way.
They knew what was going on with the sport, so they knew what I was telling them was true. I said, this thing seems to be taking off. I said, I've got Pickleball Rocks now positioned all across the country where people know us pretty well. Someday, if you decide you'd like to be in business for yourself, love to have you come on board. Well, as the story goes, the next day I get a call from my youngest son, Zach. He would have been about 27 years old at that point in time. He calls up and says, Dad, I'm in. I said, what do you mean you're in? Okay, I just planted the seed last night. He said, well, Amy and I talked it over. We might never get a chance to do something like this again, to be on the ground floor of something like this. So, I called my boss to give him my 2 weeks notice, and I'm in. Now, Zach was a licensed financial planner, for PNC Bank Corporation at that time. Wow. So I thought he had his career kind of set, but boy, he made the decision very quickly, and he came on board. And his older brother Josh came on then just a very short time later. Said, if Zach's going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so that's how the boys came into the business, and they have been full-time pickleball pros, if you would. Ever since. This has been their living for the last 10 years.
Right. It's a family affair, and I can tell you, Jeff, that Rodney is a very humble guy, and he didn't even mention some of the stuff the company does. There's an academy that goes around and does coaching for a lot of people. They still have that part of the business, and just even knowing him, how he is as a person on the court, his integrity makes a big difference, and I think that's why his company has grown tremendously, and it probably just bled right into his kids. That'd be my first assumption, but yeah, they're all athletic. Rodney's very, very athletic. It's just, they have to get it from somebody, right, Rodney?
I guess. I was going to say they got it from their mom.
All right. That would have been the next line.
Okay.
So you talked about 200 tournaments. I mean, that's a lot. How big a staff is able to keep up with that kind of schedule?
We were able to put that in place. Those 200 tournaments that we lost last year that canceled, and we lost those, we put that in place with a core team of 7 people.
Wow.
Okay. So, we're very, very efficient at what we do. We've, everything is written down, all of our processes, all of that stuff on how we run the company. We have a program that helps us do that. I didn't mention that, but the program is called Pickleball Rocks in a Box. Okay, so I personally will go to 35, 40 tournaments a year, and set up our large, what we call the Pickleball Rocks traveling store, big double booth there at tournaments. But we will have hundreds of tournaments that will call us and say, hey, we're having a tournament. We would love to have Pickleball Rocks there. Can you be there? And if we look at the calendar and our big booths are already booked, we have the Pickleball Rocks in a Box program. And what we will do is we will ship that tournament a crate of our apparel, along with a credit card reader and order pads and everything they need, a banner, a tablecloth, all the things they need to set up a booth. And if they have one of their local club members then man that booth for us, at the end of that tournament, we pay them a commission then back to their club, okay, or back to the individual, depending on how they want to set it up. But anyhow, it has become a nice fundraiser for a lot of tournaments. If we can't be there, they'll get one of those boxes and they'll sell that stuff out of there. And at the end, they get a check, and then they just box all the stuff back up and FedEx it back to us.
Right.
And so that allows us to do that number of tournaments, Jeff. What's going to happen here in the future is kind of hard to predict right now, because that Pickleball Rocks in a Box program is getting very, very, very well known. We literally, in the next couple of years, will probably have 500-600 of those boxes showing up at booths around the country. But the other thing that we have done during the pandemic, which we haven't made it real well known, but we've started developing a nationwide network of what we call Pickleball Rocks Growth Pros. And our Growth Pros, basically, these are reps now for Pickleball Rocks. They are people that want to own their own little business and represent Pickleball Rocks as their apparel line. And so we are setting those up across the country right now. So we literally will have boots on the ground in every state within the next 6 to 12 months. I think we've got 15 states covered right now. So we have, the rest to go. But once we get all of those growth pros, and their job is to be out there in the local communities helping pickleball grow, using all the programs that we have in place, doing clinics, doing anything they can to help pickleball grow in those communities that many times we don't even know exist, okay? There's so many little communities now starting pickleball, and you just can't keep up with them all. So, during the pandemic, we kind of came to the realization that we needed more boots on the ground than just our 7 core people in the company. And so, we will have that nationwide network now built very, very quickly, and that will help as well. So if there's anybody out there in your audience that's looking to make some money through pickleball right now, we are taking applications in every state, except a select few. But that's when we get those reps all in place, the amount of tournaments that we will be able to touch with our booth is just going to go through the roof.
I know, speaking for Jeff, he's done a lot of events himself, and I was an event planner for a while. There's a lot of moving parts, so to have it that tightly organized is very respectful, Rodney. I didn't realize it. I thought you had a much bigger staff all over the place, because I know breaking down, setting up, something wasn't shipped, something wasn't received. I mean, a lot of things can go wrong, but you have a nice system set up. It does make a big difference.
Yeah. Yep, and I can't say we haven't made mistakes along the way learning that. But
it's the only way to learn, right?
We've got it pretty fine-tuned now. So
Good.
So, Rodney, obviously you've been playing the sport a long time. You've been around it. Where do you see this sport going over the next 5 or 10 years? And how big can it actually get?
I'm taking a deep breath here, okay, because it's going to be a long well, I mean, because there's a lot of, when you say where's it going to go? Well, it's going to go, it is going. It's going international very quickly. Obviously, it's going to go international. I mean, I think the IFP they just signed their 54th country, I think, which was Malta here just recently. So there's a lot of countries out there that are taking an interest in pickleball now. So you're going to see huge growth overseas for sure. As far as what's going to happen here in the United States, there's going to be pro circuits, whether there's one, whether there's two, whether there's more. I don't know what that's going to be, but I think you're going to see the pros are going to eventually, and again, my opinion only, they're going to break off, and because those tournaments are going to get so big, and they are going to have to be an event of themselves, okay?
Sure.
And the amateurs are going to continue to have the great amateur tournaments that are going on all the time out there right now. And the more people that get involved with putting together great amateur tournaments, the better it is for our sport. So I think you're going to see a split, definitely. Right now, they're the APP and the PPA, they're bringing in the amateurs, and they're trying to hold amateur tournaments at the same time they're trying to hold the professional tournaments. And they're doing the best they can at that right now. But, I know a lot of your amateurs leave those tournaments thinking, wow, those pros sure do get treated well, and we got to play too. I think the amateurs are going to be a lot happier eventually when the pros do break off. So there is that professional circuit out there that, we can go watch them play. We can watch them on TV. TV is going to be a big time carrier of pickleball, I believe. You got your naysayers out there that say it's not made for TV, but shoot, ESPN, I forget how many channels ESPN has, but the last time I was over playing pickleball in Europe, I found like ESPN 8 and ESPN 9, and they had sports on that I didn't even know what they were.
Right.
Okay. So there's a lot of room out there in the TV world for pickleball. And so pickleball will definitely be on TV weekly basis, okay? Or you can dial it up anytime. I can dial up a Major League Baseball game right now. You'll be able to dial up, a pickleball match and watch it anytime, okay?
Okay.
I think you're going to see that, as hard as it may be for some people to believe, but I think you're going to see the talent level increase significantly over the next 3 or 4 years. Because now that you've got money coming in, you've got corporate sponsors out there that are putting money out there into these tournaments, it's going to attract a whole new wave of very, very talented, athletic players, men and women, both sides.
You're coming in from different sports. You're right, Rodney.
Yeah, sure. I mean, our best players out there right now, as phenomenal as they are, they were minor players in other sports. Okay, I mean, you got Matt Wright. Matt Wright was a Division I tennis player,
right?
But that's a long ways from being a professional tennis player. Okay,
Sure it is.
And so you're gonna have your semi-pro, your guys that don't go full time on the tennis tours. There's tons of them out there, and here's what I've been kind of sharing with people is that right now, in every tennis academy across this country, there are 9-year-old and 10-year-old Anna Lee Waters. Those places are full of those kids right now. Very, very talented, with high hopes that someday they're going to get either a college scholarship or they're going to go out and they're going to play professional tennis. There's tons of them.
Sure.
And all of those, when they get to that point in their life and they all get there, they either make it, but 95% of them don't. Okay,
right.
So they quit playing tennis and they go do something else. They go on with their lives. Well, if they get to the point, at 12, 13, 14 years old where they realize their guidance counselors are saying, or their coaches are saying, no, you're not going to make it as a pro, what's their option going to be? If there's big time money by then out in pickleball, I think you're going to see a ton of young folks flooding into this sport at the very, very high levels. You're going to see Anna Lee Waters, I'll say lookalikes, I mean that with all due respect,
sure,
coming in right and left. And so it's going to be interesting to watch because those kids are out there. I say they're out there training for their pickleball career right now.
Sure.
Okay, because their hand-eye coordination is so incredible. Their speed is incredible. Their drive. Those kids that are in those academies, they're there because they are driven to get better in tennis. And when they can't make it in tennis, this is just going to be such a logical place to
transition. I agree.
So,
it's happening already. We see it already. You know that.
Yeah, we do. Now, the good news is the amateur side of pickleball, I don't believe is going to change much. The recreational amateur side, the small community tournaments, all of those, you get back on pickleballtournaments.com right now, or you get on pickleballbrackets.com and look, there's 15 to 20 tournaments again. We've revved right back up to that level, and that's just the start. Okay, so I think you're going to see tons and tons of the smaller recreational tournaments going on forever. I don't think those are going to go away. They're just fun. They're fun for all this flood of new players that are coming into the sport right now. And then, 80% of them will probably never play a tournament. So they're going to be out there having fun playing recreational pickleball. I use my wife as the example of that. My wife will not play a tournament but she plays more pickleball than anybody in our family. She plays 5 mornings a week with her ladies. They've got 4 courts going with her and her group every morning, 5 days a week, and that's 80% of your players in the sport. They don't.
I agree, Rodney.
Care about tournaments. They're going to continue.
Very small percentage of the tournaments are the pros. You know that.
Oh yeah, sure.
If you look at it as a whole, and
then when you look at that whole, then go beyond the pros, the ones that want to play tournaments or do play tournaments. Again, still a very small percentage of the overall.
Oh, sure.
Amount of players that are out there. 80% of them probably will never ever play a tournament. They just don't care to.
And that's okay. They're still going to have a great life, love pickleball, have a great time.
We're gonna stop by their courts and hit some balls with them and
get them some T-shirts.
Maybe buy a shirt while we're there.
There you go.
That's our people. When I talk about how we have grown our company, that is how Pickleball Rocks has grown. It's been with those people. That is our people. They buy like crazy. They're loyal to us. They tell their friends, and they're not tournament players.
I wanted to throw in a little tagline, Jeffrey, from the Up Pickleball that he talked about earlier, and it's, "Did you help someone up today?" Or something like that, isn't it, Rodney?
Yeah.
Help someone up today. There's part of what they.
Some of our Unstoppable Pickleball shirts on the back actually have that phrase on the back. Help someone, help someone up today.
I like that.
I can't take you there, okay, but if I took you into my living room right now and showed you the wall, one wall of our living room here at the house, it has a big wrought iron sign on it that my kids gave me a number of years ago. And it says, help someone up today. That's been in our living room way before pickleball ever came along.
That's great. What a great story.
It's on the front of our house. As you walk by our house, you'll see a sign that says, help someone up today.
That's wonderful.
And so, it's just kind of
it's just who you are.
in a way how that tied in then to all of a sudden this apparel brand or line that we came out with here during the pandemic.
Perfect.
Rodney, let's go back to something that you said a minute ago. I know you're a tennis coach, and I know when I was in college athletics, we looked for sports that were inexpensive, and you probably know where I'm going with this, but could we see a day that this is a college sport?
Yes, and much sooner than later. I can't name you the ones. Grand Canyon State University out in Arizona has a club team, and I know there's a number of colleges already out there in Arizona. We've had some USAPA ambassadors out there that have been trying to get it in to the colleges out there, and they've been successful at it. Now, not only do I think it will be in colleges, because it's just a natural club sport to get started in colleges, and then after it's a club sport for a while, people are going to realize, hey, let's make it an NCAA sport. There'll be opportunity there for that. But beyond the colleges, Jeff, I can name you what I would call the best high school pickleball club in the country. It's Chartiers Valley up in Pittsburgh, up north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They've been playing pickleball up in Pennsylvania against each other, against other high schools for over 30 years.
No kidding.
Okay? No, literally when pickleball took off years and years ago, it kind of went down for us seniors. It went down the coast, then across Arizona and Texas and Florida, became a retirement or an older person sport down there, and that's where we got the reputation. But literally, that same time, it was going across, and somehow those seeds got planted in New York and Pennsylvania, and there's been high schools up there that have been playing pickleball against each other for decades. It's a young person sport up in that area.
Like me and you, Rodney.
Like me and you. Like you, at least, Michael. I don't know. But no, it'll be in every high school across the country, I think, in the not too distant future, and colleges as well.
I agree.
So Coach, I know you don't know the story because I've never told it before.
Okay.
But I learned this crazy game 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing somebody back in Naples, Maine, and she was actually a gym teacher for my daughters. And they played this game before I'd even heard of it, like 10 years ago in middle school. That was one of their gym classes, pickleball.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Nope.
The girls never told me, and I never even knew about it. So kind of fascinating that even in a little town in Maine, where my girls grew up, and in the area not far from where I originally grew up, they were already playing that sport.
You remember Rodney, Wes Gableson? You know Wes Gableson, of course you do.
Very, very well. Yeah.
He played when he was a kid growing up
Yeah.
in school.
Oh, we get people that come up to the booth all the time at tournaments
Right.
and share their story. A lot of them played it 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
And then they're just refound it because what happened there, I mean, the reason why it just kind of fizzled out is because 30 to 40 years ago, there were no courts.
Yeah.
So when they graduated from high school, they played it in gym, inside their gym or on their tennis courts. But as soon as they left high school, there was no place to go play pickleball. And so they went off, did their career thing and other sports, and had no place to play until all of a sudden here, 15 years ago or so, all of a sudden the explosion happened, and now you got courts everywhere, and people are reigniting themselves again.
Sure.
So
Jeff and I have a mutual friend, lives in Naples also. He started playing in 1975, and they just had a bandsaw somebody in the neighborhood cut out with a piece of wood. We have videos of him playing barefoot, and the story he told us, and I don't know if you know this, Rodney, they had this real tall fellow that would come and play with them all the time, and he was so close to the net, they'd never get it past him. So they said, we have to make a penalty zone to keep you away from the net. I don't know if you ever heard that story. And that's where it kind of got started back in.
Actually, I think he started in the 60s.
Is that right? Okay.
Uh-huh.
And his name's Bill Boone. He's here in Naples, great guy. And he was there in Bainbridge, Washington when the game evolved.
He was living there. Pretty crazy, right?
I'll be darned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be an interesting guy to talk to sometime.
Yeah, he's fascinating.
Uh-huh.
So Rodney, you talked about your wife a little bit. Tell us, your boys are very skilled players. Do you guys get a chance to play? Are you too busy, or?
I make it my mission, every year to play one tournament with my oldest son, Josh. He's really, really good, and usually he doesn't play too many tournaments because he stays busy with our training academy. He does a lot of teaching. People fly in from all over the country to train with him up there in Fort Wayne. So that keeps him busy, and along with it, he does a lot of the shipping and stuff like that. So he doesn't play too many tournaments, but I try to hook up with him once a year and play a tournament with him. Recreation. And my youngest son, by the way, Zach, right now, he has had a bad wrist, something wrong with his wrist. He cannot play pickleball right now.
Oh, boy.
He cannot swing a paddle without sharp pains, and they cannot figure out why. So he's kind of out of commission. But my two grandsons, who are 11 years old and 8-year-old, very good pickleball players already. And so anytime we get the family together, that's the first thing they want to do is go play some pickleball.
No kidding.
It is a lot of fun with them. Yeah.
What's the closest course to your house, Rodney?
4 minutes away. Remember, I live in Brookville, Indiana.
Okay.
Little country town, 2,500 people. So yeah, everything is close here. I can walk to anything. I can walk to the grocery store.
Perfect.
Yeah. So the courts, I'm very fortunate. I've got four courts that we basically can have access to anytime we want. And so this is going back to the beginning of the Brookville pickleball story, but because there was no pickleball in this area 13 years ago, we became kind of the seed that got Indianapolis started, and Cincinnati started, and the Dayton started. It was us, and Middletown, Ohio had 6 courts at that time. We were about the only courts around. So I can remember 10, 11, 12 years ago, people coming to our Brookville courts with their cameras, with their notepads, like, hey, we heard about you guys have pickleball. Yeah, they were taking notes. How do we get this going back in our towns?
It's still exciting, Rodney. We'll go to places where they'll have no courts, and then they're going to put in 2 courts. And, when it gets started, people are just getting hooked in every little community. You're right, though. It's much bigger than it was 10 years ago, and I think it'll continue to be even bigger in 5 years from now.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Any
if we're sitting at 4.2 million players right now, according to the latest stats, we're sitting at 4.2 million players. When I started 13 years ago, there was 200,000 players.
Wow.
So that's how far we've gone in 13 years. And now, with every state having it, how soon's that 4.2 gonna double?
Sure.
Not very long.
Yeah, going to hit critical mass.
Yeah.
So let's get back to playing the game for a minute. You've played a long time, as been well documented. What's the
Yes.
best advice you've ever received about playing the game?
About playing the game.
And it could be from Coach Mike. It could be from somebody
No,
else.
I wouldn't give Rodney any advice. I wouldn't know what to tell him.
Well, I'll tell you, my oldest son, Josh, again, very, very well-respected coach.
Mhm.
And about 2 years ago, he was teaching some pickleball clinics with Scott Moore out in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And he came home from that with what I thought was a great tip. So I tell people about this and I use it. But the tip he came back with was, he says, when you're on the court, always be thinking that next shot that's coming from your opponent is going to be 100 mile an hour. Okay, and you're either going to eat it or you're going to deal with it. Okay, so if you're ready to deal with a 100 mile an hour shot and thinking that every shot that comes to you is going to be 100 mile an hour, then when they hit a soft shot at you, it's easy to adjust down and handle that. But when they do hit that hard shot, you're ready for it.
Okay.
So it's all about paddle preparation. It's all about mentally being sharp and paying attention and focused. It's being ready for that 100 mile an hour shot every single shot.
Good advice.
Yeah.
If you're ready for the fastball, you can adjust to the curve, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. Now I'll share one other one that is, it's not so much about the playing part of it. And this one came from Josh, but he and I totally agree with this. How did he word this? He said, because I do this all the time. He says, always be willing to play a game with anyone, because he said you'll never know how playing that game with them may have made their day. Okay.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
And I've done that even before I had the saying. I've always done that as part of growing the sport, here in Brookfield and any place that I've gone. Anytime I go play recreationally, my first hour is always spent trying to find people standing off to the side of the courts that aren't being invited in, or
Right.
the lower level players, and I go play for an hour with them.
Great
That's why
advice, Rodney.
I go play.
Great
And,
advice. Absolutely.
If everybody would do that, you wouldn't hear all these controversies from all the different courts around the country. Hey, so and so won't play with me, or I don't feel
Right.
welcome there.
Yep.
It doesn't take that much. It doesn't have to be an hour like I do. Just go do one game.
Yep. Plug them in, Rodney.
Yeah.
Plug them in.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
So, Rocket, I have one last question for you. I know you played against Coach Mike in the Bainbridge Cup earlier this year.
Please.
And tell us how that turned out. And on a serious note, tell us how you and Coach Mike know each other.
Okay. Well,
Pickleball.
I'll tell you what happens. Okay, when you get into to good athletes in any sport, we have very short-term memory. So I don't remember being at the Bainbridge Cup. All right.
Good answer.
I don't remember him beating me at all. Now, as far as how we met, now that's interesting, and I may not have this story right, but I can tell you, I believe the first time I ever saw Mike Stewart was in a little town called Hiawassee, Georgia.
Exactly right.
Okay, yeah, up there on top
On
of
the
mountain.
water.
Yeah. So that's where we first
That's
met.
how we met.
I don't know that we played against each other then. I have no idea. But that's where we met.
did.
So we've known each other for quite a while.
Yes, sir. That's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 6 years ago.
I don't know if that was the first tournament that Hiawassee ever had. We were invited to the very first tournament that they had when they opened those courts, and we've been there every year since. That is one tournament we never miss.
It's a beautiful location. Yeah.
Yeah, we love the people up there. They're always just so good to us, and we go back every year. And we were there for the grand opening. There's still our original banners hanging on their gate there that says Pickleball Rocks here. And
I think I met the Hackenbergs there. That was Probably my first or second tournament.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know anybody. I was still getting called in the kitchen. I was a mess.
Hey, let me tell you my quick Hackenberg story when I
Okay.
met them the first time. The very first time that I met the Hackenbergs was in Middletown, Ohio. Okay, so it's only just an hour from me, right over here above Cincinnati. And my very first mixed doubles match, I played with my wife, and we entered that Middletown tournament. And our very first match as a mixed couple was against Jim and Yvonne Hackenberg.
Nice, really nice family, nice couple.
Nice. I mean, if you're going to get destroyed by anybody, they are the nicest people that can do it.
Get destroyed by.
But the interesting part of that story, Mike, is that I talked to people like the day before. I had heard of the Hackenbergs. I had never met them, but I started asking a few people about, how do you play against them? I was very, very competitive. I had no idea how good they were. Okay. And
what does that mean? You were. You haven't changed. You're the same.
But anyhow, the strategy back in those days, anybody you talked to about playing against the Hackenbergs told you play everything to Jim. You play everything to Jim. Because Jim was still fairly new to the sport, and Yvonne had incredible hands, and Jim was a banger. And so if you could get to Jim, a lot of times he would make mistakes back in those days.
Right.
And that didn't last very long. Another couple years down the pike, he's one of the best doubles players in the country. But back then the strategy that everybody gave you was, play Jim. That's your only chance.
Exactly. Find an opportunity and live there.
Yeah.
All right, Rodney, I have one more bonus question for you. You've been at how many tournaments over the past 12 or 13 years? Hundreds?
Well, I average, in the last 10 years, I average 35 to 40 that I'm personally at a year.
Okay, so what is your favorite venue?
Ooh, good one.
Okay, I'm going to give you two different answers because my favorite, what I think is the perfect venue, and it just opened up in October this last year, and I was invited there by Julie and Rayner for their very first tournament at Pictona. They're in Holly Hills, Florida.
Right.
It is laid out perfectly. If you were going to design the perfect pickleball facility, it's perfect. It has, if your name gets called at a tournament to go to a court, you're 60 seconds away from that court, no matter where you are. So they've got a building there with all kind of locker rooms and a restaurant, and they've got a centralized hub where all your players hang out, where your tournament operations are. I mean, it's perfect. My favorite tournament is at a great facility, and Michael, you've probably been out to Palm Creek in Casa Grande, the Palm Creek RV Resort, where they held nationals for 3 years.
Used to, yeah.
Okay. That's a 32-court complex out there, and I love going there to play tournaments. The Duel in the Desert is my favorite tournament of the year to play and actually work as a vendor. The Duel in the Desert is always in February, I believe it is, or late February.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, love that complex.
Is that Arizona?
That's Arizona. Yeah, I'm sorry, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Wonderful. At
the Palm Creek RV and Golf Resort. I call it the Palm Creek Pickleball Resort. But Nationals was held there for 3 consecutive years. It's a beautiful complex. And to me, again, I get around, I work with see a lot of different clubs operate. It is the best pickleball club in the country as far as being organized, and everybody's involved, and you can walk in there any day of the week. And if you walk in there and you're a 3.0 player looking for something to do, you just walk up to their big billboard there, and it'll show you what's going on every court that week. Okay, today there's a 3.0 or a clinic, going on courts 24 and 25 at this time. Or today there's a round robin tournament for 3.0s on courts 5 through 10, at 1 o'clock. Or
it just happens to be a beautiful location as well.
It's a beautiful location, yes. Yeah. Now, if you want to hit beautiful locations, I just came from Big Fork, Montana last weekend, or 2 weekends ago. Big Fork, Montana just opened up a brand new 10-court complex sitting right at the base of Glacier National Park.
Wow.
You talk about a beautiful backdrop
Stunning.
for some pickleball courts.
Stunning.
It was wonderful. 4 indoor courts, 6 outdoor courts, and all sitting there looking right at the Glacier National Park
Beautiful.
mountains.
Amazing. Well, Rodney, this has been a great, coming up on an hour, just some great stuff, some wonderful insights about pickleball and Pickleball Rocks, and we just so much appreciate your time.
Thank you very much,
Jumping
Rodney.
on with
Appreciate
us.
you taking
A
all
lot
this
of fun,
time.
guys. A lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you at a tournament in the not too distant future.
Or
Yeah, I
maybe
hope
on
so.
the other side of the net.
Maybe we ought to be on the same side someday, Michael.
Who knows? You don't know. That could happen.
Yeah. All
We'll
right,
have
guys.
fun. I know we'll have a great time.
Yep, you bet.
Thanks again, Rodney.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Rodney. Appreciate
good
your
night.
time.
Take care.
Coach
I
Mike.
told
another-
you he had a lot of information to share.
Wonderful, wonderful guy.
Super guy, and he could just keep going because he's 13 years later. He's been at every spot more than 5 times. He knows all the players. They all come by his booth. It's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
A lot of hands in the cookie jar. There's a lot of setting up, and logistically, he's got it all set up.
Well, he got me excited about some of these tournament locations and hitting some of these courts.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's nice. You just you go with your friends and you go to these destinations you haven't been to, and the one he mentioned that we met at in Georgia, it's phenomenal. I mean, you're driving down a residential street, and you turn down the road, and there's the courts right on the water. It's a beautiful location.
Wow, wonderful. Well, I know the Atlanta Open, the next one coming up in September, is in Griffin, Georgia, which
Okay.
isn't I think it's about 45 minutes or 50 minutes south of Atlanta. Kind of not like the Open that was on the north side. I think it's a little more remote.
Oh,
It'll
the
be
Atlanta
interesting to
Open they had. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what those courts are like.
Beautiful. I know you were there too. It's just phenomenal to see the different locations. And a lot of the tennis centers are engaging with the pickleball community and turning a whole tennis center into a pickleball tournament for, Thursday through Sunday. And they're seeing the results are very positive. So I think more and more tennis centers will engage with the pickleball sport.
Absolutely.
Too many tennis courts that are just not being used, that are just dead. And they'll support the lag.
Well,
Jeff,
Coach,
how many days a week are you playing? 5?
I play 4 days a week.
4 days a week. That's great.
I treasure my off days, and then
I understand.
the days that I play, I enjoy it. I think more than I would if I played every day.
And the last time I was at East, well, it was East Naples Community Park. It's a different name now, but it was fairly organized. That if you were new and came up, you'd see who's playing where, and we're going to have this level of play, and it'd show you which court to go to. I think they're doing a good job over there.
Yeah, they do. This time of year, it's a little bit different with construction going on, but they still have it, an area for 2.025, 3.0, 3.5, and now
Right.
this time of year, all the 3.5 and above
Great.
kind of migrate to the same area. So
Good. Yeah. Well, I know you have some courts in your private community, but it's just so big over there in Naples. It's getting much stronger here on the East Coast. We're hearing about new parks coming up with pickleball courts, and we can send them all to our new buddy at Pickle Play. And get them
absolutely.
plugged in.
Well, Coach, I'm putting your information up as we speak. It's going to
It
go
should
on
be,
the pages. It's obviously on your
yes. So
on
to
your
reach me, to talk to me, I'm doing more video coaching than I did. It started with COVID, where people couldn't get out, couldn't get in. We did some coaching in garages, and the video coaching really just kicked off. So yeah, my contact information is right there. You can reach me. And I'm wearing this, Jeff, because 2 years ago, we had this tournament here at PGA Verona, the World Cup. So they're going to have it again in December. And it'll be nice. Ooh, a whole bunch of people here are going to be volunteering. So they're getting excited. These are people that I met a year ago, never even considered playing in a tournament, let alone helping volunteer to run the tournament. So it's exciting. There's lots of people just getting much better, enjoying the sport much more. So,
Well, it's interesting because you think about a tournament, if you're a player, you show up and you report to the courts, but there's so much that goes into it. You touched on that a little bit, whether it's the referees or volunteers or, somebody that's handling the brackets. I mean, it's,
Sure.
it's a lot of work.
most folks that haven't done an event like that don't realize that the volunteers are the actual foundation of the whole tournament. If you don't have good help, I mean, from court monitors to food to, I mean, there's so many different dynamics that happen in a tournament. And if you don't have that set up in advance and have it, it's going to be a disaster. And that's the reputation you'll have. You run a poor tournament.
Right.
So it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we're right at the hour.
Okay,
so
Jeff.
let's sign out. But thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you very
you're
much,
always a wealth
Jeffrey.
of knowledge, and it's just wonderful to do a show with you. So have a great night, everybody.
You too. Everybody have a blessed week, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.